What's up, guys? I'm JP.
And I'm Ryan.
The Rye Guy.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. New nickname. I had a guy I worked with that I called Rye Guy. You can't have that one.
I don't want that one. I hate when people call me that. My wife is the only person I'm cool with calling me Rye. And other than that, I'm like, I'm not a fucking bread.
But according to your wife, you sure are a snack.
Fuck you. Moving forward.
Welcome to CineNerds.
What's up? This one's my choice, and I'm super excited about this. I'm going to get into this one really hard. So, if anyone's been tagging along through all of our adventures so far, you've probably learned along the way that my favorite horror franchise of all time is the Hellraiser franchise. I love this franchise. I think it's mostly in part because Clive Barker created a beautiful, yet insane version of hell that just leaves this impression that it doesn't go away. So my favorite horror film of all time personally is Hellraiser II, Hellbound. So this is a weird one because we haven't usually gone to a sequel before we see the first one, but I feel like this one carries over from the first one so well, and it's so fluid that it's worth it. But yeah, it was my pick. I'll let JP tell you his initial.
So I want to unpack a couple things before I get into my initial reaction. So this is Hellraiser is your favorite franchise. You love the universe that Clive Barker created.
Fuck yeah.
So I have to ask the question first off.
Oh no.
My favorite Clive Barker movie, I want to know if you've ever seen it. Rawhead Rex.
I have not.
That is my favorite Clive Barker film. And we are going to have to do that one now that I know you have not seen it.
Clive Barker, The People on the Stairs, yeah? No,
it was Stephen King. I think
People on the
it was
Stairs.
Wes Craven.
It's
yeah,
Wes
that was
Craven.
Wes Craven.
Yeah. Who did Shocker?
You know, I just bought Shocker too because it was on sale for $5, and I do not know.
Well, anyways, so yeah, no, I love Clive Barker. He is kind of a genius, if you will, and I'll get kind of. Let me go into the political aspect of the Hellraiser world. Wes Craven. The political aspect of the Hellraiser world is recently there was a big fight about who was being chose to play.
That was actually going to be my next question. Before I did my initial reaction, I was going to ask you what were your thoughts on the new Hellraiser? Quick response on what you thought of the new Hellraiser and the girl that played Pinhead. What did you?
So the girl is a trans person, so it's even better. Like, yeah. I say that with a positive. She not only is a girl, but trans, and so you're representing multiple different aspects. And in that instance, though, making a female version of Pinhead made sense. And you don't. That's the thing is, at the end of the day, as we see in this very film, and I'll get into it, the Pinhead demon, Cenobite, if you will, isn't limited to a shell. It is its own being, so to speak. And so, to me, it just made sense that it would go into a female, A.
Oh, yeah.
And B, if anyone knows Clive Barker and what his writings are like and how dark they are,
it made sense for it to be a trans
for sure
woman. Yes,
he is the definition of a proud gay man, and he shares it in his writing. All the leather and bondage, all the things in there. So while his lifestyle might not be my forte, I appreciated it, and because it's so dark and twisty in the best way, I'm good.
I thought she was great.
I thought she was awesome.
I thought she was. She was way better than the Pinhead we got previous.
Oh, I don't want to talk.
We don't want to talk about that.
I don't acknowledge that.
To me, the only Pinhead is Doug Bradley, and I can't remember her name, but the girl that played in the last one, she was fantastic. And now
there's another Pinhead.
I say this that, and I didn't like him either.
No, he wasn't great, but he was better than the last one we got.
Yeah, but I will say this: I wasn't a super big fan of that new Hellraiser. It was okay. I didn't hate it, but I wasn't blown away by it. But she did great as Pinhead. She was
I
really...
I think it was great.
Yeah.
I was happy. Sorry, I was going to pull up something. So, did you see the show on Netflix called Sense8?
No, I did not.
Bro. So, she was in that show. The girl became Pinhead. And that was how I first became aware of her. It takes place around 8 individuals, all born at the same exact moment in different parts of the world. And they all can feel each other and tune in each other's feelings and become one. Almost there's these moments where there's these weird orgy scenes between the 8 of them, even though they're like kind of universal siblings, if you will. Just a really cool, creative show. They didn't get approved for a second season. They got canceled, but they did give them one more episode to bring it to closure. So at least it was done well. And I have not brought myself to watch that last episode because it's one of those shows you don't want to end.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and dive into my initial reaction. So when you chose this, I was like, okay, a Hellraiser film. These I've seen these 100 times. So I started it, and for whatever reason, I could not hardly remember this one.
Jamie Clayton, sorry.
Yeah. I could not remember this film hardly at all. So I realized that for whatever reason through the years, I've watched all of them, but for whatever reason, my repeat watches, I watched the original, then I watched Hell on Earth, Bloodlines. So for whatever reason, I always skipped this one.
The best one.
And
in my opinion.
So rewatching this last night, I was like, I don't remember any of this. Why do I not... And it just clicked that I just obviously always skipped this one, even though I had seen it. And as I was watching, I was like, I was remembering things, but it had been years since I seen this film. And I had forgotten so much that it was almost, not quite like a all new watch, but it was almost like, it was such a fresh watch that it was almost new to me again. And I enjoyed it.
Cool.
So,
all right. So, if any of you are not hip to Hellraiser, essentially, there is a puzzle box. There is an earthly minion, if you will, who makes sure that there are different puzzle boxes too. I will stress that. But these puzzle boxes, each one of them has pleasure or pain. There's a little Asian dude who he wasn't in the newer one, and it bothered me. I did want to hear him go. He goes, "What's your pleasure?" And it's always just, I don't know why, I love hearing it. It gives me chills every time I hear it. And when all this is getting into motion with these puzzle boxes, basically whoever gets them and can solve them, the lament configuration is what it's referred to, they will find these things, whether it be pleasure or pain. To some people it's angels, to some people it's demons, and blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on with that. But these Cenobites, these demons, these creatures that they have basically made the controllers of these boxes to deem who is worthy of what pleasure or pain. There's just something that's so mysterious about them, something that it draws you in. And I will say this very frankly, like Doug Bradley, who to me, and as JP already stated, he's my only Pinhead. There's no one who can do it like he does it. He has, especially when he's in full makeup, he has this confidence, this stature, and you would never think it when you see him, that he is this beacon of insanity. But he's just awesome. He does it well.
Yeah, no.
But these puzzle boxes, though, they come into this young woman named Kirsty, come into her life through her family, specifically her uncle Frank in the first one. And the second one, Hellraiser II, literally takes place immediately after the first one. So it's she wakes up after going through her ordeal she went through in the first one, wakes up in an insane asylum, essentially.
She still has a dirt on her from the first one.
But what's more interesting to me is where she ends up and how she ends up there. She ends up with Dr. Blanchard, Channard. Dr. Channard. I don't know why I said Blanchard, but Dr. Channard's insane asylum, whatever it is, the hospital, whatever they call it, but it's his. It's got his name on it. and he is a collector of these puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
So he's already been looking at these things forever, and he's already honed in on this young girl, Kirsty. And the events unfold from there.
Yeah. And, watching this, like I said, this was basically with fresh eyes for me. And sorry, I'm pulling the IMDb up for this as I'm talking. This film, watching it this time, I don't know. I probably agree with you that this film I think it's better than the first one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
As great as the first one is, I think some of the gore in the first one, in some ways, I like better. But just how this whole film plays out in an insane asylum, and then all these characters are actually going through the corridors and the mazes of hell, essentially, was just really fucking cool. I wanted to bring this up because the girl Tiffany,
her name's Imogen.
Yeah,
in real life,
and she didn't do. I looked at her IMDb last night. She doesn't have much. She didn't do much films, and I do. Well, the one thing I remember watching this years ago, and the first thing I said whenever I put it on last night, I was like, "That girl looks like a female Brad Pitt. She has a jawline."
Do you know who she reminds me of?
Who?
So I'm going to age myself immensely here, and I've talked about this movie before, but remember Legend, Tom Cruise?
Oh yeah.
So the fairy in that reminds me of her. The jaw, you're right. She does have a large jaw.
Yeah.
but
she's a pretty girl,
yeah,
but she has
pretty.
this jawline that's very similar to Brad Pitt, and I was like, and she has those eyes too. The eyes.
So you're sweet on Brad Pitt. I got you.
He's a good looking man. I mean, can't deny it. I heard he smells funny. I don't know if that's true or not.
Who? All right, hold on. We're gonna get real gay right now. My man crush. Ready?
Okay.
Tim Henson from Polyphia. That dude's a pretty fucking dude. Sorry, he looks like a chick. That's the only reason I said it.
John Borman.
Really?
John Borman.
Okay. Is that because he's gay?
I mean, probably. He's a good-looking gay man. I mean,
easier access. I guess. I don't know. Maybe Tim Henson is too. I don't know.
He just seems like a really fucking cool dude too. And like, I met him one time, and he was super cool. But like,
So I do want to give a little lead up to part 2. So in part 1, Kirsty comes home to live with her dad and new stepmother, Julia. Her dad's name is Larry, and he's played by Andrew Robinson.
I always remember him from the film Cobra.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about. Oh, that's a great movie.
Yeah.
Anyways, he refused to be in part 2, so they had to rewrite some things and figure out how to do that. But so Larry played the father with Julia, and her father's brother Frank moves back home, or moves in with them for whatever reason, and this affair between Julia and Frank begins, and things go from there. And essentially, I've forgotten one because I didn't watch one before this. How did Frank die?
I thought he actually got a hold of the puzzle box at some point, and he opened it.
The mattress was left. That's right. And so Julia finds this room and then starts bringing him his victims.
Or was it the mattress is what Julia died on?
Yeah,
but did he die on the mattress? I thought he just had blood that was left in the floor, and then the father
maybe he came out of the puddle of blood on the floor.
Bled onto the floor, and
That's right.
It bled into the floor. That's what I'm remembering.
So, needless to say, though, the story unfolds where Frank finally gets brought back, so to speak, as Julia brings him victims. He builds back up. You start seeing his muscle, his tissue, everything starts forming back around his skeleton, all the way into getting him new skin.
It's a lot like the Mummy.
Yes.
But gorier.
Uncle Frank, who's in part 2 as well, he always reminded me of fucking Razor Ramon.
He's a very small razor. Yeah.
Yeah. But and you know what's funny too? In part 2, the guy who plays Frank in Hell, he looks nothing like I remembered him in part 1.
Yeah, no,
it was so weird, but it's the same actor.
Is it?
Yeah, I had to look it up.
I didn't look it up, but no, I didn't think it was the same guys. It looked so different.
Kirsty, though, basically, Julia helps bring Uncle Frank back. Frank kills Larry, who's Kirsty's father, and a whole basically battle between these Cenobites in this box ensues because they're trying to get Frank because he's escaped them. And
Kirsty makes a deal with the Cenobites,
right,
to give them Frank, because I don't think that, best I remember, they don't realize Frank escaped hell.
No, and I think she's trying to. I don't remember if she's trying to save herself or get her dad back in the first one.
I think at that point she was trying to save herself.
So that all happens. She gets through, but these murders have still occurred. There's still bodies. There's still things. There's no proof that any of this story has happened. So Kirsty, therein lies the beginning of part 2. In part 2, the mattress that Julia died on is what's left, and it gets moved. This doctor acquires it. He has it shipped to his house. And, dude, what ensues to begin Julia coming back is what made this movie so fucking clutch for me. It's one of the, in my opinion, one of the most sick moments in cinematic history for horror, because he's in charge of an insane asylum. So he finds a schizophrenic who literally feels bugs are crawling on him, and he keeps screaming, "Get them off, get them off, get them off." And he brings him to his house, puts him on top of this bed, and gives him a straight razor. And he proceeds to start cutting himself over and over to get these bugs off of him. And as the blood's pouring out onto the bed, all of a sudden you see Julia's arms come out of the mattress, hold him, and God damn it, that's going to sound nice. I'm sorry. You guys saw that. I know. But anyways, the body pulls him in, and then she proceeds to drain him of blood to get her first, if you will, layer of this process. But just the brutality of that moment was awesome.
Well, and it was that whole scene, because he's trying to get away and he's crawling, and she's like just a meat body, and she's trying to get him, body. And like they're just wallowing all over the ground. You know, it's kind of it's just a fucking kind of sick scene.
It is,
and it's not quick. It's just real slow and sluggish.
Now, this came out in '88. This was literally the year after the first one came out, so they filmed these like sequentially, is my guess. And no, they didn't. So I remember this now. 87, the first one filmed, and while it was in post-production, the studio approved the second one, and they began filming, and that's how they turned them around so quick. But in 88, when this came out, I was 9 years old, and I see Hellraiser 2, and I'm just, not with an adult, mind you, this was me sneaking and seeing shit I shouldn't have seen. Mm-hmm. But when you see that scene as a 9-year-old, fuck, it left an impression in me for sure. And it kind of, that combined with the 6-year-old me seeing Night of the Living Dead, my horror story is just beginning, and it's the bar is set high.
Yeah, it's a great scene. And I don't know how far I'm jumping, but not long after, I mean, there's a scene that's, and I can't remember what came first. If it was the room with all the bodies where he was taking all these insane people for her to essentially feed on to rebuild her body. But there's a scene where that one guy, I think he was an orderly or something that worked. The guy, he worked there, and he's in the room while she's in another room next to him, killing somebody, and he's just there behind the curtain looking. And I'm sitting here thinking, get the fuck out of there.
You're talking about the doctor?
Yeah.
He's a weird looking guy.
Yeah.
I remember him from other things in acting, but I know what you mean. Yeah, that was weird. And for him to come back, and then that whole scene that ensued afterwards, he goes back and he sees Kirsty coming out of the he's like straight up peeping on Kirsty in the shower.
Oh yeah.
And she comes out and she's like, "What's up?" And it was so like nonchalant, and he's like, "You were right.
Yeah, yeah. It was so weird. Like, that guy was just odd.
Yeah. He was an odd fit, odd cast as well. But I'm going to rewind a little bit. So this Dr. Channard, he essentially is the antithesis of evil, and he is what's leading this alongside Julia. Julia is definitely kind of leading him, if we're being honest. But he has his own agenda. He may as well be a serial killer himself, and they allude to the girl Tiffany in the movie. They allude to her mom bringing her, and she's having basically she's trapped in her own hell when this is happening, and she starts remembering a moment from when she first arrived at the insane asylum. Tiffany has powers, not powers, but she can figure out any puzzle. She's autistic.
Yeah, she's obsessed with puzzles.
Right. And so he, wanting to open this collection, he's got 3 of these puzzle boxes, and he has them in glass cases. But in an effort to open them, he has her and enlists her to do this. And in order to do what he needs, when the mom brings her to him, she is like, "Can you help my daughter?" And he's like, "Yes." And this is all flashback. But essentially, he kills her mom to keep her. So it's interesting how that all pans out and builds into the story. So you have Tiffany now who can solve these puzzles. You've got Kirsty who's trying to get away from any semblance or any part of this past of these Cenobites. And then everything starts coming together pretty quickly where they're in the insane asylum. Tiffany's opened one of the boxes, and the walls start opening, and the maze is now accessible.
And it feels a lot like the Minotaur maze, almost something weird like that.
But I know. So you're talking about the creature. Does that give you that vibe?
No, I'm just talking about the maze in general.
Okay.
Like, it just reminds me of like what you'd see in like Greek mythology with like the maze with the Minotaur in it. And,
yeah.
That it just gave that, which I think is really cool. That was one thing that I loved, about it.
So, the all-powerful being of hell in this universe, if you will, is called the Leviathan. It essentially is up in the sky. When they get outside of this maze, it's up in the sky, and it's shaped like the puzzle box when it becomes a spike. It basically takes the form of whatever the puzzle box is in real life. And so it's up in the sky. And I found out when watching this time and looking into the facts, did you know that it's repeating Morse code over and over?
I did not know that.
So in the background, there's a bell happening, a little sound, and it's repeating a Morse code, and the Morse code is for God. It's just God over and over. And I was like, well, that's kind of a cool little eerie twist. Then we were looking at this landscape. It's like an M.C. Escher drawing. There's all these bridges and stairs going different directions. Probably, I would say for younger people, it's more reminiscent of a Harry Potter school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Hogwarts.
Yeah, right. But I'm going to rewind a little because as they're going through the maze, there's a specific creature that really has my interest piqued in this universe. It's called the Engineer. It's got 4 legs. We won't count the 2 that are in the puppeteering underneath where people are walking, but it's got 4 legs and a tail, and it scours the walls, basically making it so no one can get past it and will take out anyone in its path. As I read into the Engineer, I come to find out that it was a Cenobite also, but something happened where it was basically stripped of its power, and now it's a guardian essentially. So it was kind of interesting to see how that happens, especially with the foreshadowing that comes in to play. Julia is an evil bitch, full out, no way around it, and she is working in service of Leviathan. And when she does this, she takes Dr. Channard, and they're in the maze, and this crazy black box comes up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden she backs him into it, and this thing grabs him in, pulls him in, and it starts working its magic to make him a Cenobite.
Basically has almost like piano wire that wraps around his face, and you got these little tentacles going in his mouth, and it's quite an
interesting process, and to see that in that way, and then when it's all full circle, he comes up and he's a new, crazier, more intense Cenobite essentially than Pinhead and the others, and there's this device he uses when he's doing his surgical thing that's like a brain blender. It's the only way I can always assume it is. But this thing has like a worm arm, if it makes sense. It opens up like a flower, and inside there's the little grinder part, and it goes into the back of his head, and that's what holds him up. And so he's very mechanical in his movements, and he's very restricted. And then out of the palm of his hands, he has these three little tentacles that come out. Yeah. And there's a plethora of things that come out from a finger saying "come here" out of one of these things.
There's a flower. There's a flower that comes out of one.
Tools of death. In one instance, there's 3 blades that reminded me of the Ball and Phantasm.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool to see this Cenobite come into fruition, come into power. He's very quick to start looking for victims and moving along. And the cool thing about this is when Kirsty somehow, I don't know if it was because Tiffany was in Channard's house. Mm-hmm. Tiffany, when she was in there and Kirsty was in there, Kirsty found information about who Hellraiser or Pinhead was.
Yeah, who Pinhead. She finds a old like military photo of him,
which that was a whole cool thing too.
Yeah,
I'll get into that a little bit. Clive Barker, when he wrote the first one, he had intentions for each Cenobite to have a background story, but it all got cut.
And you see some of that background story, Bloodlines.
Yes,
you see some of that later in a couple of movies later from here.
And Bloodlines, and in the way that it comes to fruition in this, I mean, they just focus on Pinhead specifically, but eventually all the characters, you see their past in some regard. But I have said this over and over. I will always say it. I love conflicted villains. If they have a moment of kindness, of something where it makes them think twice and they are unclear whether they're good or whether they're bad, there's a battle. There's a battle in this, and it's Dr. Channard versus the Cenobites with Pinhead in the lead, and Dr. Channard fucks them up.
Oh yeah,
it, like ruthlessly fucks them up. And what was even cooler, so you've got the Cenobites all have names. I don't like what Barbie Wilde, she's just referred to as the female Cenobite, and that kind of annoying. I wish she had a cooler name. There was female Cenobite, Channard, and Butterball. And these guys are like his main right hands. They're the 4 horsemen, essentially. And Channard, when he's spinning around at the end.
I love that, too.
I love this, too.
Because he kills him, and they all revert to their human forms after they get killed. And he transforms to his human form. You see him turn around like this big, gnarly-looking Cenobite. And then it turns back around again, then it's like a young child.
It's like a 13-year-old kid in the Cenobite armor hanging from this like spinning thing. And it was a lot to see, but at the same time, it made you felt a connection with these characters that were literally trying to. And what prompted this battle, by the way, that's what I was going to get into when I said Kirsty found the background info.
She found the photo.
She handed Pinhead a photo of himself, and he's like, wait. I remember.
Yeah.
And he does this whole thing. And all of a sudden, his right hands are all fighting with him, but Dr. Channard is taking him out one at a time. And when it gets to Pinhead, because he saves the best for last, he deconstructs him one thing at a time. So you see his spikes go away. You see everything go away down to his bare roots, human. And they purposely over-exaggerate how little empathetic he was to make him seem less. I got kind of annoyed, too, when he ends up having his throat slit by one of these little snake finger things.
It's very anticlimactic.
It was.
That's the only thing I don't like about this, because you expect Pinhead to be at least somewhat of a badass for a second, and it's like he does this really heroic, I remember, and then they start like they're going to go after the doctor, and then all of a sudden, zip, that's it.
It was there. So Cenobites, for anyone who doesn't know these, I'm just explaining these out. They have Hellraiser specifically. He has these chains with hooks, and he just goes, and the chains with hooks start gripping whatever they can, pulling its skin, shredding, doing the whole bit. And he sends like 3 or 4 of them at Dr. Channard, and dude just cuts him with one swipe. And everyone's looking at the Cenobites are looking at each other like, what else we got?
What else we got? That was our thing.
Yeah.
Now our thing didn't work.
So I was definitely like, ugh. But this whole premise, this whole moment, it basically gets me hyped for Tortured Souls, which is a spin-off of that Clive Barker got to do. Todd McFarlane too made the toys for it. This is a very cool concept, and the Cenobites that were in that had some great depth too. But
yeah. So we kind of skipped over it, but
did I get excited and skip?
You got excited and skipped, but that's okay. There's actually a whole scene before that where Kirsty faces Frank.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she faces Frank, her Uncle Frank, which I wanted to talk about this scene.
Okay.
For at least for a minute, because it gets very becomes very evident that Uncle Frank is all about the incest. And it gets really weird. And then she turns and kisses him and basically says, we can be together.
Yeah, but she's trying to save her ass.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
I get what she's doing. But the fact that he was all for it and how creepy he was before she had to do that, Uncle Frank is a freak.
Oh yeah, he's in hell too. He's in his own hell with he lives in a hell of orgy. But she figures out his weakness and lights his world on fire, literally.
Yeah. Well, and she burns his photo and then it burns him.
Yeah. Definitely some solid aspects there. As you get into the Dr. Channard after he takes them away, I'm having a brain fart here.
Well, there's a big chase scene.
Well, yeah,
where Julia gets sucked into that room, and like her skin, she has the.
This was excellent, by the way.
The puzzle box. It was like the spike at this point.
It was in the spike form.
And Tiffany realizes that they have to have that. They have to finish the puzzle, and so she's getting sucked into this tunnel. So is Julia, and Kirsty is trying to save Tiffany, but she won't. She doesn't reach to her. She reaches to Julia because she realizes she has to have that puzzle box. Right. She has to finish it, and she reaches for Julia and reaches for Kirsty, and ends up ripping the entire skin suit of Julia off, and the puzzle box is there. But at that point, it bothered me because they ran off. They didn't grab the puzzle box. But even though Tiffany, in that moment, Tiffany realized they needed that puzzle box.
I think she was too scared because the void, but the way that it comes back is clutch.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the
well, from there,
the deconstruction of Channard, though.
Yeah. Well, from there, they run back into the mental institute. They get out of the labyrinth, and you see the mental patients sitting there with puzzle boxes. They all have boxes.
Yeah, that was excellent. That was a good part. I like that.
He comes in and he basically kills all of them. It doesn't really show it though. You see it as they run back through. But it's kind of just a chase scene. It's just a big chase scene. And then they realize we got to go back for the puzzle box because they see everything's all to shit on Earth right now because of it.
Whatever happened that led into, and I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank with it, but I think I had to run away from the movie for a moment. But whatever happened, basically, I remember coming back and Channard's head was being pulled apart. What happened with that in that moment that I'm missing?
Well, that was after they go back into the labyrinth.
Right.
Yeah. They go back into the labyrinth and they get the puzzle box and.
No, I skipped ahead too far.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And they get back to that platform looking at the puzzle box in the sky.
Leviathan.
Leviathan. And Tiffany is sitting down trying to solve the puzzle box, and that's when the doctor comes back. And
the doctor comes back, and he basically tries to get rid of Kirsty really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it just, what's her name? Tiffany and the doctor. And all of a sudden, Julia shows back up. And she starts kissing Dr. Blanchard. Or Channard. I don't know why I keep saying Blanchard.
Mm-hmm.
Channard. And starts kissing him, and this gives Tiffany enough time to finish, to solve the puzzle. And when that happens, that's when everything starts going crazy. And the doctor gets pulled apart, essentially. And the fun thing was seeing Tiffany's face as Julia reaches down to try and save her, because she's gotten blown back. She's hanging off the ledge. She's about to fall.
And she says, "Trust me."
Yeah, and Julia just goes, "Trust me." And here, it's not Julia. It's Kirsty. She put on the skin suit, and she brought that puzzle back to her, too. So it was all around a nice little thing. But for me, I'm all about seeing, especially when it's two bad guys fight. Like, that was huge to me. That made for a pivotal amount of story to me. I wish they had a better fight, for sure.
Yeah, that's the weakest part of this movie was you wanted to see Pinhead and him face to face and fight, and it was just very anticlimactic. I'm
a big quotes person, and this Hellraiser gave me two of my favorite Hellraiser quotes as well. The first one was, "Your suffering will be legendary even in hell," and the other one was, it is not hands that summon us, it is desire." I love those quotes. I love those lines. Pretty much most anything that Bradley as Pinhead does in this is badass. So
and that's been in all of them.
Yeah. Even when he started aging, he was badass.
I think it was Hell on Earth that he has a great scene where he's in a church and he like throws his arms out, twists his head, and flames blow up out of the candles, and he says it like a really cool quote there, and I can't remember what it is. I won't say Jesus wept, but that's not it. That's what in the first one. But he has like tons of those that are just great.
Story about that. So I don't know if anyone watching knows who Eric Andre is, but Eric Andre is a unique individual, to say the least. And one of his merch shirts, he came through recently on tour. One of his merch shirts was his face being pulled apart by the chains and hooks, and it said "Andre wept." And I thought it was the coolest shit I saw. I thought that was awesome. And then, of course, in the opening sequence, the Jesus wept. That was excellent, and that was in the first one as well.
Yeah.
So it was a good carryover to start you off with episode 2. Or an episode, Jesus, part 2. But yeah, I'm a big fan. This one, my complaints, I can give a few complaints, no problem. The CGI, but 87, 88 for what they had, I'm not sad. I'm not bummed out or anything. But like the end of the first one, the What's Your Pleasure guy comes back for the box, and when he comes back for the box, he all of a sudden takes off and morphs into a dragon and starts flying away, and it looks like straight claymation. And then
I was looking up the numbers.
No, you're good. And the end of part 2, it looks almost like how do I explain it? It looks like somebody took a rotating GIF and put it right onto the page when one of the Hellraiser blocks comes up.
When it got to this scene, I was like, "Oh, this is painful," because you see this little statue spinning with all their faces on it, and it's like it's lifting up out of the ground.
Yeah.
And you can tell that that's like a really bad film overlay, and it's just, it looks rough.
But that combined with the CGI for the things that come out of Dr. Channard's hands, these things all are there's definitely a pattern.
Was it CGI or was it claymation?
It could have been claymation.
I think it was claymation. I may be wrong.
Maybe it's a hybrid. I don't know how they were able to claymated a few of the things, but it's possible.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but there were some weak points.
I will be honest with you. As you were sitting there finishing up, that's what I was sitting here doing. Was I was looking at the numbers, and I'm going to hit my mic now.
Yep.
I'm actually surprised at how great this film looks considering what the budget was. So,
what was the budget?
You want to take a guess? You just want me to tell you?
All right, for the budget, the way you just said that, based on what I've seen, $15 million.
$6 million was the budget.
Okay.
So, looking at the budget on this,
for 88, that's
88, and the film itself. I mean, most of it. I mean, the labyrinth and all that stuff, and like the the concrete walls opening up, and I mean, there's some really cool effects, practical effects in this, and for a $6 million budget, I mean, it looks great.
The coolest effect, the whole movie, was the two little skeletons humping on the pillar at the end. It was horrible. I mean, it literally looked like two toys. Just I can't even express it.
There's the shit stuff in this is bad, but then there's stuff in here. It's like this looks great.
No,
you know,
writing wise, story wise, cast with the exception of the Odd Doctor, that was just a weirdo extra. I liked every aspect of this, and I could watch this movie over and over. If I was being honest, it is just a solid horror film in my opinion.
Box office.
I did not look up any of these, so I'm totally.
That's why I didn't see it on your little pad there, so that's why I pulled up my phone.
$6 million budget, box office. Let's go 13.5.
You were close. It was a little. It was like 12 million. Something.
So it's a success.
It made money. I mean, not a lot of money, but it made money.
Right.
So I mean, I was actually surprised at that budget and box office though, because I remember the third one, Hell on Earth. I feel like I don't know what the numbers are on it, but I feel like Hell on Earth actually made a decent amount of money.
It did. People went to it. I went to the theater for that one. And you know what? The CD dude, for whatever reason, like, until I rewatched that one, I for the longest time thought that was Lemmy. I couldn't. I saw it when I was little, and I thought it was Lemmy, and I'm like, sweet, Lemmy's in this. And yeah, no, when I saw it back, I'm like, that's not fucking Lemmy. Like, I was pissed.
Yeah. All right. So ratings. You want me to go first?
Yeah.
That's your film, so I'm to go first. Like I said, this is almost like
Did we mess that up for Late Night with the Devil? Shouldn't have you gone last? I think we messed that up. I
don't remember what we did. It's all right. Like I said, this is almost a fresh watch for me because I've not seen this film in so long. I actually really enjoyed this one now that I've watched it. It's probably one nostalgia-wise for me. I think Hell on Earth and Bloodlines are probably my favorites for nostalgia fact because those are the ones I watched the most, and I remember watching as a kid. I watched those as a kid a lot more. But watching this one, especially with fresh eyes, because they've been so long, I really, really fucking like this one. And I'm not a big Hellraiser fan. I enjoy them, but it's not one of my go-tos.
Right.
I'm going to give it a solid 3.
That's it? 3?
Yeah, I think a 3.
Favorite horror film?
I think a 3. I think for me, I think I still like Hell on Earth and Bloodlines more, but nostalgia reasons. But I really enjoyed this film. I mean, it sits in the what I would probably give a 70, overall. So I mean, I think it sits around a 3.
All right. Before I give my rating, little fun fact here. You ready for this?
Go for it.
What do Hellraiser 2 and Titanic have in common? Don't read my notes.
Oh, I was actually just staring into nothing. It just happened to be where your notes were.
They both hold the record for the most times 2 characters repeat each other's names in a movie. So Tiffany and Kirsty and Jack and Rose. That was interesting. I was like, how the hell are they going to correlate this to Titanic? But anyways, so for me, Hellraiser 2 is a definitive horror movie in my life. It helped kind of shape what my view of horror should be, what it should look like, specifically with the scene with the schizophrenic on the bed with the razor. That was horror at its finest, in my opinion. The story was great, cast great. I loved seeing the conflict of the Cenobites versus Dr. Channard. I loved all of it, except for the shitty CGI aspects or the claymation, however you want to pitch it. So those things aside, if those things weren't as bad as they were, specifically the end pillar that comes up out of the bed, if those things weren't there, I would do a perfect 5 nerds, but I'm not there. So we're going to go 4.7 nerds on this.
Wow, you really love this film, don't
I
you?
love it.
So you're really disappointed with my 3.
No, I mean, I was a little shocked, but I definitely hold this to a high standard. So it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's not for everyone, so.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it probably, especially nostalgia-wise for you, it probably sits kind of like Evil Dead for me. You know, Evil Dead 2. I can understand why a lot of people would be like, "Man, this movie's dumb."
No,
but
it's great.
I would rate it really high. And the same with like Dr. Giggles.
Oh my God, I haven't even thought about that movie in years.
I know people that I talk about Dr. Giggles and they hate that fucking movie, but I fucking adore that movie.
Laugh. I love to laugh.
So yeah. I get it.
All right. Dr. Giggles, man. That was one that I hadn't thought about that in years.
Yeah, I love that movie so much that I have the Blu-ray for it now. That we finally got a Blu-ray release for that movie. But before America got a Blu-ray release, I actually bought a Blu-ray release from Germany, just so I had a Blu-ray version of that before 4 years later after that, we finally got a American release. Before
it re-released, I bought I think it was 25th anniversary, a Korean version of Transformers movie. So yeah. I was like, I'll take that. That's Blu-ray. Let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so good shit all around. Feeling good about this one. All right, guys. 3cinenerds@gmail.com is the email. Please shoot us an email for any likes, curiosities, questions, suggestions, all of the above. And we're going to be probably looking at doing something different at this wall area behind us. So maybe if you want to give us suggestions for that, we'll take that. I'm also going to beat this with, as hard as I can. I know JP's going to cover it too, but please, everyone, if you like what we're doing and it resonates with you at all, share, like, follow, all the above. Sharing is the best thing you can do to help us expand our fan base and have more people and keep us doing what we're doing. That aside, any of the streaming platforms you choose for your podcast listening pleasures can be found on our Facebook bio, and our little merch store link is in there as well through our link tree. So check those out.
Invite, review, share, repeat. Write us a review. We want to read them on our Spotify, Apple, Facebook page. Write a comment in our YouTube. Just share it. Invite people. Make it happen.
Yeah.
Later.
Later, guys.